Okay, so we're on Hey Amud Beis, a few lines down. The Rebbe, Heichi Nota. So the Rebbe, Heichi Nota in the Purim. How did the Rebbe plant a plant or a tree on Purim? So Hatani Rabbi Yosef, we have a brisa. Rabbi Yosef, Simcha Mishtav Yom Tov. Right? It says Simcha Mishtav Yom Tov. Simcha Melamed Shasur Behesped. Simcha, happiness, teaches us that it's usher to be maspid somebody, give a hesped. Mishta Melamed Shasur B'Tanis. Mishta, right? The mitzvah of Mishta is that we're usher in Tanis. It's usher to fast. Important. The Yom Tov Melamed Shasur Basis Malacha. Yom Tov teaches us that it's usher when we have a Yom Tov, it's usher to do Malacha.
Yeah, so that's where the tree comes in, right?
Yeah, the Malacha. Ela Rebbe, and for the Gemara, Bara Beisa Hava. Rebbe lived in a place where they read Megillah on the 14th. And when he planted, it was on the 15th. We know that Rebbe lived in Tveria. And Tveria was a place where they read on Tesva because it was surrounded by a wall from time to Shibanun. And the Gemara, oh, so we're changing this. Rebbe lived in Tveria. Tveria, they read on the 15th. And when he planted, it was on the 14th, so it wasn't his Purim. So now, in fact, the Gemara, how are you going to say that it was pasha to him that Tveria was on the 15th? Chizkiah read the Megillah on the 14th and the 15th. He liked. Because he was Mesopek, if it was surrounded by one time to B'Shir and for the Gemara, the Chizkiah Mesapgale, L'Rebbe Pshitale. Chizkiah Taka was Mesopek, he was in doubt. Rabbi, it was Pashat. Like the Gemara, and if it was Pashat to him that this is the day of Megillah and the 14th is not, was he still allowed? Is he still allowed to do Malach on the 14th of Haksiv? Megillah's Tanis. So Megillah's Tanis was written before our Megillah. That was the original Megillah, and it's that's what they had in his time. It's Yom Abbas Yove. It's Yom Chamisha Asar Yome Pura Inun. The 14th and the 15th are the days of Purim, and the Lemisped behind, and we don't make a hesped on them. We only needed the 14th and the 15th, both of them, to include that the people from the 14th aren't allowed to give a hesped on the 15th. The people from the 15th aren't allowed to give a hesped on the 14th. Right. So this is the Afka, hesped, and Tanis, fasting and giving a hesped.
That's both.
Right, Abba Malacha, Yom Echad, the Sulai. But Malacha is only the day that you have Purim, and the other day not. So the shayla is that also, like if you see Hasidim all around, wear shramel on Shushan Purim. But I think they do go to work, no? They usually go to work with shramel.
I mean, those that go to work.
Right, the ones who are going to work, and those people I think don't wear shramel. The people go to work. Eini, Frek the Gemara, Nein, Efsher Nein, V'ho Rav. There was a story with Rav. Chazi Lahu Gavra. Rav saw a person, a Gavra. The Habe Koshade Kisna V'Puria. He was planting flax on Purim. He cursed him, and his flax didn't grow because of the curse of the holy rabbi. And the Gemara Hasam Bar Yoim Hava. This was a different story because that guy who was planting the flax was actually his Purim. It was either the 14th or the 15th, and it was his day of Purim, and that's when he was planting. So that's why he cursed him, and that's why the flax taka didn't grow. Adkan Hazara. Okay, so on Hey Amud Beis, we're basically halfway down. Rabba Brei de Rava. Rabba, the son of Rava, Amar. Afilu tema b'yoyme. Afilu tema b'yoyme. We could say another zach. We could emphasis this in another way. That even say he was planting on his day of Purim. Hesped b'tainas kabilu alayhu. Malacha loy kabilu alayhu. So what does this mean? We could say he has another way to. Rabba, the son of Rava, has another way to explain this. He says maybe it was even possible that he was planting on his day of Purim. We're talking about Rebbe that was planting, right? So maybe it was actually his day of Purim, but since
he learned the pasuk different,
they were makabel on themselves. Hesped and Tainus, but Malacha they weren't makabel on themselves. The people in those times. So now you can't. He had to substantiate. So what was he saying? The Meikar Ksiv, the first pasuk that talks about says Simcha Mishta V'Yom Tov. It says that they were Misaken Simcha, happiness, Mishta Suda V'Yom Tov. abstaining from work. Yom ksiv, and then when the pasuk goes over and repeats it, the way we learn it, Lasos is some yemei mishla simcha. V'ilu Yom Tiv like ksiv. So the first pasuk, when we're talking about it, says Mishta Simcha V'Yom Tiv, and then when it says Kimu V'Kiblu, that the Yehudim, the Yidden, were makabel on themselves, it says only Mishta V'Simcha. So Vaystacha is that we weren't makabel, the Yidden then weren't makabel themselves to not work on Purim. So the Gemara asks on this, Ve'elo Rav, so Rav, my Tamal Toy, Lahu Gavra. Why did he go and curse this guy? If he was allowed to do it, and for the Gemara, Dvar Ma'amatarim B'Acheim Nogu B'Hem Isahava. Stuff that is mutter, but there's people, the Acherim, most, that doesn't mean that there are just other people that are machmer. Then you could say, like, in a place where some people daven Rabbeinu Tam, so everybody has to wait for malacha. Some people it's very hard, especially if like they smoke cigarettes or whatever. So, but this means Acherim means most people. Acherim means what most people do. Acherim nogu b'hem. Most people, the people in that place, were noyeg not to do malacha. Lasai the Rabbi loy nog, and where Rabbi lived, they weren't noyeg. They weren't the custom. They didn't do malacha. The Gemara tries to answer another way. You could also say, if you want, you could say la'olam nog. They were nog to do malacha. They were noyeg not to do malacha. The Rabbi, and Rabbi, what was he doing? Netiya shel simcha nata. He was planting a planting of simcha. So what is this? Kidetnan. So we learned in a Mishnah, Avru Elu, we're learning about Tanis, when there was like lack of rain, so there was no rain, so they would make Tanesim, a whole bunch of Tanesim, 13 Tanesim or something like that. I think Rashi, Yud Gimel Taniyos. Shabezim Asan Al Gasham. Right, so basically they would make 13 different Tanesim, they would fast, and this would hopefully bring the rain. Avru Elu, if these 13 Tanesim passed, v'loy nanu, and they weren't answered, they didn't get the rain right away, mematen b'masa maten. So we slow down work. We start working a little less. B'binyan, b'natiya, b'evisin, and b'nesun. Building, planting, engagement, and marriage. Vitnola, we learned on this, right? So we explained this. Binyan, when we say binyan, what does it mean that they stop building? Binyan shal simcha. Netiya shal simcha. A binyan, that what do we stop building? So you stop building a binyan of simcha, something that's considered a binyan of simcha. Netiya, planting, is what do you slow down? You slow down planting a netiya of simcha. Eizeu binyan shal simcha. So the Gemara asks, so what is considered a binyan, a building of simcha? So they used to build a house for the first son. They would build a house, and then they would have the chuppah and have the marriage actually in the son's house. So like building this house was like a big simcha. Ezehi netiya shel simcha. So what's considered a flanzen from simcha? This is planting in art school touched it as an arbor, a royal arbor. So basically I was like trying to do some research, and I saw it's like a lattice shape that you take like trees and you bend them around, intertwined. And this is a place where the kings would have their parties, and they would sit, I guess, in the shade of the trees. If you think of lattice and you think of like the trees, like the vines intertwined, covering that, that's a Barnaki Shal Malachim.